So when you think of Minnesota, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For a lot of folks, it's just one word: cold. I mean, the state has this legendary reputation for absolutely brutal, unforgiving winters. But the real story of its climate is so much more complex, and it's a story that's changing right before our very eyes. So what is really going on in the Northstar State?
And look, this reputation, it isn't new. All the way back in 1886, one journalist famously wrote off St. Paul as basically another Siberia. That image, right, of a frozen, inhospitable wasteland. Well, it's stuck around for more than 100 years.
And to be fair, the numbers are pretty staggering. The state's all-time record low is a bone-chilling negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That's negative 51 Celsius. That's a level of cold that's kind of hard to even wrap your head around.
Which brings up a really fascinating question. If the cold is that brutal, why on earth are more and more people thinking about moving to Minnesota? What is the secret behind the weather in the Northstar State?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to break it all down. First, we'll dive into the science behind these wild extremes. Then we'll explore the unique mindset it takes to actually thrive there. And finally, we'll look at how climate change is literally reshaping Minnesota's identity as we speak.
Okay, so first things first, we have to understand the sheer scale of Minnesota's weather. It's not just about the cold, it's about the whiplash.
Get this. The gap between Minnesota's record high of 114 degrees and its record low of negative 60 is a massive 174 degrees Fahrenheit. That is one of the largest temperature swings in the entire country. See, this isn't just a cold state, it's a state of absolute extremes.
The official term for this is a humid continental climate. In simple terms, what that really means is you get 4 very distinct seasons, but they're all pushed to their limits. We're talking hot, humid summers that can spin up tornadoes, and then these frigid, snowy winters. That nice, mild weather in between, yeah, it never seems to stick around for very long.
So let's really dissect that famous cold. What is it that makes a Minnesota winter so uniquely intense?
Well, geographically, Minnesota is just perfectly positioned for extreme cold. It's hundreds of miles from any ocean, which would normally help moderate temperatures. And crucially, there are no mountains up to the north. That leaves it wide open to these massive waves of Arctic air that just pour down from Canada all winter long.
This exposure creates 2 classic types of winter storms. First, you get what are called Alberta clippers. These are fast, dry storms that kind of clip down from Alberta, Canada. They bring these fierce winds and really dangerous wind chills. Then you have the panhandle hooks. These form further south and hook moisture all the way up from the Gulf of Mexico, which results in these massive, heavy snowfalls. And of course, we can't forget the Great Lakes. Lake Superior acts like this giant heat sink. It keeps the North Shore just a little bit warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. It also produces that famous lake effect snow, which is exactly why Duluth is one of the snowiest cities in the entire state. But weather is so much more than just science, right? It's about human experience. How do people not just survive, but actually build a life in a place with such a challenging climate? As one resident put it, the sheer length of the winter is the real challenge. It's not just a couple of bad months. By the time you get to March and April, when other places are enjoying spring, Minnesota can still be totally locked in ice and snow. And that can really start to wear on you.
So Minnesotans adapt. And this isn't just about toughing it out. It's a real strategy. It means changing your mindset, finding activities you can only do in the snow, and most importantly, investing in the right gear and the right infrastructure.
So this is what that adaptation looks like in practice. A heated garage, it's a game changer. Good snow tires are totally non-negotiable. Quality outerwear is absolutely essential. And having a balance of indoor and outdoor hobbies, that's key to staying sane. It's really about building a life with the winter, not just fighting against it.
You know, for newcomers, there's this well-known, if maybe a little anecdotal, timeline for adjusting. As one transplant shared, that first year is just rough, the second's better, and by the third, you've somehow adopted the local customs and you're running around in a hoodie. It's a whole process of physical and psychological acclimation.
But here's the thing. Just as people are adapting to that classic Minnesota winter, that very winter is beginning to change.
And the data on this is crystal clear. According to the state's own Department of Natural Resources, Minnesota has warmed significantly, and winter is warming the fastest. As you can see in this chart, it's not just that the average winter temperature has risen. The coldest nights have warmed even more dramatically, and that's shortening the season of deep freezes. Now, for some people, especially those who moved from warmer climates, this change is actually a welcome relief. Milder winters mean less hassle, easier commutes, and a little less of that bone-chilling cold that Minnesota is so famous for.
But for many lifelong residents, that relief comes with a deep sense of unease. They see the warmer winters not as a comfort, but as a really disturbing sign of a planet in distress. As one person put it, how can you celebrate a no-snow winter in freaking Minnesota?
And this isn't just about feelings, it has real-world impacts. This warming trend means less reliable ice for the fishing shacks, shorter seasons for all those amazing outdoor skating rinks, and it's a threat to the winter culture that has really defined the state for generations.
All of this points to a fundamental shift in what it even means to be Minnesota, and it forces us to ask what the future of its most defining season really looks like.
And here lies the central paradox of this whole thing. The very thing that is eroding Minnesota's classic identity, a warming climate, is also making it more attractive. As other parts of the country face extreme heat, wildfires, and water shortages, Minnesota is now being seriously discussed as a potential climate refuge.
So this leaves us with a really profound question. The very climate that once made Minnesota seem like Siberia is now fading. As the state becomes this potential haven from a warming world, what happens to the tough, resilient identity that was forged in all that ice and snow? What is Minnesota without its legendary winter?